各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看JxJ论坛。今天特别的开心，因为我 Jimmy Mark 我们好朋友 Jim Noteware 一起主持，我们2个礼拜没见面了。It's been 2 weeks, Jim. I'm very excited to see you.
Yeah, thank you. We had
more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, we've gone for the last 2 weeks, and the week before I left, we taped early, if you remember.
Right, that's right.
So thank you for that. So
you were in Italy. Could you tell our audience a little bit about the trip? Because I feel like this is something that is very rare for the modern American family, because you have multiple generations traveling overseas. Am I correct? Overseas,
yeah.
With every one of your children and grandchildren together.
Yeah, no, it was very nice. As people may recall, my wife and I had the good fortune of going to Italy in March of this year, and we liked it so much that when we came back, my wife said to me, "You," meaning me, "are going to be 70 years old on July 4th. She said, "Let me throw a birthday party for you with all of the children who are scattered, all 4 of our adult children, they're scattered all over the world." She said, "Let's use this as a reason to have a family reunion. And oh, by the way, our youngest child, who was born on July 6th, was going to be 30. So we celebrated that as well. And all of our family are avid cyclists. And our 3 daughters, we have 1 son, 3 daughters, have been to this bicycling center, on the eastern side of Italy. And so it was a very easy thing to convince them to come because they've all been there before and they've all loved it. And what isn't there to love? It was beautiful weather, a wonderful hospitality, great food, great style of life. And all of our family, and we've talked about this before, Jimmy, all of our family are very international in their attitudes and scope. And so they all enjoy the travel and seeing different places, renewing old friendships, all of those kind of things. So we were at the cycling center for 7 days. And before that, we went to Naples for 4 days. And after that, we went to Bologna for 2 days. And so we got to see different parts of Italy. And if I could figure out how to make it better, I would tell you, but it was wonderful in every step of the way, including being able to relax and including, as we've talked about before, one of the, I'll call it joys of international travel for an American is to get away from America for once in a while and to look back at America from a distance and try to see America through the eyes of where you're looking from. And in this case, it was Italy. In this case, it was Europe. We also went to Austria and Germany,
wow.
just very briefly. But a lot of things are going on in Europe. And in some ways, they're similar to the US. In some ways, they're different. And for instance, while we were in Italy, there was no hint of inflation, none. Prices were modest. Even in their own currency, in the euro. But we were very aware that the euro was falling relative to the dollar. And when we arrived, I think the euro was $1.04. And over the 2 weeks we were there, it fell to virtually parity. It was less than $1.01.
You can't even plan it this way because you're literally getting a 30% discount.
Yeah. And so, but I think that's less on what had to do with them than our Federal Reserve is finally, belatedly, increasing interest rates. But when interest rates increase, our currency gets stronger. Theirs isn't necessarily getting weaker. Ours is just getting stronger, but it's the reverse. You get to the same consequence. But many people that I spoke with in the business world think that this is just the beginning, that the euro will probably weaken further relative to the dollar, get to about 97, maybe 94 cents. And our daughter that lives in England the pound has been about $1.20, but it is weakening as well. The English, the British economy is very weak, and some of that is politically inflicted, as we saw from events last week. But much of it is just the base economics of the country, and it's sad. My grandparents came from Italy, from England. And so I tend to watch what happens in England a little more closely than many other countries. And it's sad to see what's happening, but it's a gradual, continual self-destruction, as Britain started almost 100 years ago.
Jim, on a quick note, is there any way we can adjust your light so the light is in front of you? Because you're a little dark over there. I hate to, I apologize. Should have told you earlier.
Okay.
Normally you would have very good lighting, but today is
Is this better?
No. You need a light above, behind your computer if you can. You have a little lamp or?
No, let's see.
You can move around a little bit.
Excuse me. There's something wrong with this light that's next to me. If I can fix that. Oh yeah, here's the problem. It's not plugged in. Let me plug it in and we'll see where we go.
Thank you, Jim. I always wanted our audience to be able to see you and not not too many shades of darkness. Much better. I can see the light. There we go.
Okay,
better. There you go. Much better. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that
good.
was way too dark just now. This is
You
good.
can edit all of this out, right? Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to tell you this. First of all, your observations is right. Second, you have to understand it's very rare, whether American or not, to be able to set a foundation so your children still will want to travel with the parents and to want to spend time, especially after COVID. You really cherish family and what's important to you a lot more.
Yeah.
You can't time it. Anytime you do Europe is a good time. Every time I went, I always thought of some things could get quite pricey, especially in Italy. But because of this parity, it actually is a great time to travel. Secondly, a lot of European countries or Asians probably did not appreciate the loud and rude, obnoxious Americans before. But after the pandemic, everyone welcomes us back.
oh yeah, it was very, very interesting. Italy was one of the first countries, Greece as well, to drop all of the pandemic restrictions. And the purpose of it was we need tourism. We need tourism.
We learn to appreciate each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right, when you cannot go. Now, the fact that you guys have a common interest that is very healthy, that's outdoors, and the fact that you are, by the way, happy birthday. Last year, we were able to celebrate. Remember, 70 is the new 60. But in 10 years, they'll say 60 is the new 50. Or 70 is the new 50, because medical technology keeps advancing. We live longer. And spending time and your kids all over the world and well-traveled, and they still want to spend time with you. That's my goal. I hope my kids grow up. I don't have to grow up. I don't have to entice them, because I know I have friends that have to bribe their children to travel with them by paying for everything or all expense paid, just so they would even come. Because most kids nowadays, they don't want to spend time with their parents.
Yeah, I hear that story often. Yeah.
Yes.
And some parents are willing and able to do that. I'm glad.
It's one thing to be willing and able. Even if you're willing and able to get to that point, it's just as parents, I just hope I hope they want to travel with me. I would love to. If they come, I want them to come willingly. But the fact is, you had a good time, and it was a long trip, and it's hard, and there's a lot of planning involved.
Well, it's true. During the pandemic, during the first 6 months of the pandemic, they all came to Houston because Houston was a better place to be. So they lived with us like they did when they were growing up.
It was the best time, isn't it?
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was like a perpetual slumber party for them because they were all working remotely from their offices elsewhere in the globe. So they were up all night, getting up early in the morning, staying up late. I couldn't keep track of who was where.
I didn't know that. We didn't discuss that. But you see, the pandemic really, the good, the bad, the ugly. But, there's a lot of good things that came out of it. What isn't it? You never would have a chance like this again for your adult children to move home and spend half a year together, But going back to your trip and your observations with inflation, it's happening with the Japanese yen also.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Abe passing was a shock. This extreme politics is going to keep happening all over the world. We cannot go back to this last century we had a lot of assassinations, the start of World War I, we cannot keep having these kind of things. It's a shame. So we want to pay our respects to Abe, but even though he's very controversial, the analogy I always have is he still goes to the temple to pray to the war criminals. Imagine right now in Germany, the current prime minister or president, the premier there, Germany is the premier, goes to Hitler's descendants and pray to him and hail as a national hero, or the Hitler's offspring is still ruling the nation. Could you imagine that? You cannot, right? I cannot. But that's what's going on in Japan. Hence, there's a lot of hatred. Hence, there's a lot of divide. But I cannot blame the Japanese for this. We, as Americans, created the situation because we needed Japan to stem the red tide from Soviet Union and China. So we did not want to gut or fully persecute the people responsible for their atrocities in World War II. In Germany, we did because there's so many reasons. I could spend hours talking about it. But anyways, it was a shock to us. While you're in Europe, you were able to see how look back perspective and kind of appreciate maybe more, or we're more critical too. Could you tell us, our audience, aside from inflation, aside from the same headlines we all see, would you say is better place to raise your family? You know what? Better place in your current situation without the ties in business. Let's say if you're retired, or let's say that if you have no ties and you can work remotely, would you ever could you imagine living in Italy or Europe?
Sure, you could. And one of the things that we all remarked about was how family oriented where we was from an Italian standpoint. We were one of the few Americans where we were. So everybody that we met was either other European or overwhelmingly Italian. And teenagers were there with their parents, beach resorts, mountain resorts in the cities like in Naples. It was really good to see families being together and having a good time, especially given, the demographics of most European countries, including especially Italy, where they're well below replacement. So children are becoming a rarity, but it was wonderful to see them and all being happy and well-behaved. The places we went were immaculate and very well maintained. So it was a happy place. And my wife was looking around the real estate. Well, maybe we should get a little place along the water here. Maybe we should do this or that. So she's always thinking that way. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. You could see yourself. But the other side of it is many of the people, and everybody was wearing casual clothing all the time, had T-shirts that had something to do with the United States. And I don't think there's any question whatsoever that the United States is the cultural leader of much of the world. Everything from Mickey Mouse T-shirts to Hollister, Harley Davidson to Los Angeles surf shops. Everybody was wearing an American T-shirt. Many colleges, all those kind of things.
Interesting.
And I think it's just they keep their eye on what's going on in America. The young kids were all glued to their phone, just like people here. And when we got to talk to their parents, they all expressed the same frustrations, where their children's attention was diverted to the phone and their narrow group of friends. So we are that cultural leader because that wouldn't happen if we hadn't invented the smartphones and the internet and social media and everything that comes along with it. But I think the United States is the cultural leader of the world, and people are not only following, but expecting us to lead. people were always asking me about U.S. business, about what's it like to do business there, what's tax rates, employment practices. The financial markets, people were just hungering for what's going on in the United States.
That's very interesting because that shows that our cultural influence is still able to, for the next generation, the younger generation, because it's very funny because the other way around is at the top of the fashion world, at my age group, Italian fashion is all anyone would wear in a certain social circles. You look at New York Fashion Week, Italian designers, French designers from Hermes to to Armani that is the top of the line, and that's what everybody wants. But yet, the younger generation will see that popular culture, or how to say this, fashion for the next generation is still led by America. So that's good to hear. It's also telling that the family structure is still very intact in a lot of Europe and in Asia too, right? Many generations together. See, we were like this maybe a generation ago, right? Even 30, 40 years ago. We talked about this before. The core American value, family, is a family unit, a church-going family unit. Mm-hmm. We're not here to thump the Bible or to say religion. We're not. But the fact is that is not the new family structure anymore, especially in cities. In Italy, I want to ask, I wonder if what you saw was a vacuum, because you were at resort towns, you were at, obviously, how should I say this, more upscale areas, okay? Because if I was in Milan, the inner city, big cities, or when I was in Venice, there's even the tourist out, there's still the residential areas, or even Paris, right? Paris is one of the dirtiest, most dangerous and crime-ridden cities, but that's the actual Paris, the residential areas. But when we go there as tourists, we don't see that part, right? We're at the tourist area. So I'm saying, do you think it's a vacuum? Because what you see are the people that can afford it. Because the blue collar folks, they're not vacationing. They're not able to spend time with their family because they're all working. Does that make sense? It's hard.
Yeah. And what you say applies to where we were at the beach resort, where our bicycling center was. Mm-hmm. That is all very true. It takes some means, even for Italians, to be able to afford vacations and trips there. Because it's not inexpensive. But we were 5 days in Naples as well. And Naples is a big old city that is a cultural crossroads for not just Italy, but all of
Europe.
Southern Europe, the Mediterranean.
Tourist attraction, everyone goes.
Yeah.
And so you see all walks of life from different social levels.
Yeah, and so most of who we interfaced with were blue collar people in Naples, the people who made the delicious pizza.
Gelatos.
Yeah. Pizza was created in Naples, and
that's right. Real Napolitan pizza.
Yeah, and it's incredible how good it is, and how uniformly good it is.
And how simple it is. It doesn't need stuffed crust or millions of toppings.
And it's different. It's different than the American adaptation.
It's the cheese. It's the simple cheese. The tomato sauce has to be from there. It has to be a certain type of tomato. The flour has to be a certain grade of flour. And very important, the oven, the temperature, the crust. It's about I'm a pizza connoisseur, and my mouth is watering thinking about Italian pizza. Houston, we might have one or two places. Pizza Row. It's not never going to be like Italy, but we have one or two places that has decent pizza. Pizza Row is one of those. They imported an oven from Naples. But going back to what you said about keeping their culture, pizza, gelato, these artisanal traditions and history, part of their culture, they're able to keep it because people know how important it is and they enjoy it. They'll keep spending money on it. You look back on us, are we cherishing what we have? Are we able to maintain and keep our traditions? Because we're a young nation. We're all a nation of immigrants. So it's good to be able to preserve it and also to keep it going by making it economically viable.
Well, I think there's two things to what you say there that fall directly. Our experience. Number one is history. Italy has an incredibly rich history in so many ways. Absolutely. And people in Italy that is the basis of their identity, and all the art that comes out of history. And most people in America don't understand this, but all the technology that comes out of history, the scientists, Galileo, and some of the best automobiles and motorcycles, let alone fashion.
Still do.
Maserati, Ferrari, Ducati. These are all Italian. And I mean, they're world class. People from all over. Americans have status symbols by buying Italian cars. So, bully for them. And so that leads to the second thing, which is pride. They are very proud of their heritage. They're very proud of their whole ethnic identity in Italy, of course, and the rest of the world. And we didn't meet anyone who wasn't outwardly positive about who they are, about what's going on. They're incredibly happy across at all walks of life. And because they're happy, they smile, they welcome other people, they're glad for relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And I happen to admire that greatly, especially given some of what I call here in the United States are diseases of affluence. The way many of our teenagers are sullen, are depressed. Many college students have to rely on drugs to get through. Our success, maybe our greatest strength is our greatest weakness, but we have not been able to handle success very well. And maybe there were a lot of things that we simply didn't see in Italy. But
no, I agree with you, because what you brought up also reflects the July 4th weekend in Highland Park. Another child, like you said, right? These disease of affluence where they cannot just. Anyways, we're in a happy place now about your trip and your family, and bring this up, and it reminds me of, you look back and reality here. Is this what we want our nation's future to be, where we cannot go to a parade to celebrate the birth of our nation, where we see videos of the police aptitude in Uvalde, where they sat there and did nothing, where they're trained and paid to do their job and they didn't, and they want to hide it? Or do we want to see Italians with their pride of what they do, whether they're a waiter or a pizza maker, artisanal? You know what I mean? Where's the pride? When is the last time we saw someone that has not a pride that is just blue collar? Yeah. I mean, there's rat race, right? Comparing wealth and rich and
it's true. I mean, their history is craftsmanship, is art. And so if I'm picking an example, if you're a bricklayer, you lay the bricks perfect.
You take pride in it.
And you take pride in it.
You do the best you can doing it.
And they're not all the same in a simple coursework. There are patterns and mosaics and
absolutely.
Jim,
I'm very fortunate because my dream car has always been the Maserati. Okay. And I was able to finally own one. Brought me an immense joy. After my third kid popped out, I realized that it's just not sustainable. But when the kids are out of school, hopefully I'll get back to it. But it's just different. The way the engine roars, the craftsmanship is not the most practical car. It's not a German-made precision machine, but the Italians, that roar, that leather, the craftsmanship, the feeling is unparalleled. And I didn't get one of those mass-produced, for U.S. market Maserati. I got a real Maserati. So that sounds really bad. I meant one that was not mass-produced. It was still, you see the craftsmanship. It's not just for the American market. So the Quattroporte was one of the best vehicles I've ever driven. And every time I go to Italy, Olivia and my wife would shop and shop till we drop, and then we'll eat great food. And even if we're not in the tourist areas, but I want to take some time to not just talk about, while you were gone, we had these shootings, we had, all kinds of as usual stuff. But I want to take a few minutes, and I apologize for not telling in advance. One of my good friends passed away 13 days ago, unexpectedly. He was 47 years old.
47. Ooh.
Yes, he's very young. He's a fourth generation Aggie with a lot of pride from A&M. Good guy. He was very successful in the corporate world at Fiserv. He was a director. The sad thing is he left behind two young children. One's 12 and one's 11. Charlie and Zach. Our group of friends did a memorial and we attended his funeral in Killeen. I just want to take a time to let everyone know that keep him in his family in our prayers. It was a freak accident. It was not illness or COVID. It was just a freak accident. That also make us know he was also somebody who has a lot of faith. Me and him would, for the past 4 years, would constantly debate each other, to say it nicely, debate. But we think back as we were just going at it because he was a avid Trump supporter till now. And so me and him, but you know what? You look back, it doesn't affect our friendship. All this stuff on the news, this political divide, his wife knows what's going on. I didn't know she knows. She said, yeah, it didn't. We talk about, we argue, we joke, call each other conspiracy theories. But in the end, this is our life. This is who we are. These are our friends. This is our family. Don't let news media, don't let these political figures divide and create hatred between us. Because now that Charles is not here anymore, I would love to be able. So I know he'll be opening the gates for us up there when it's our time, and we probably keep going because that's who we are as Americans. We're able to debate and discuss and disagree, right? We agree to disagree, and just don't let it get too far. Like these fools and that are running for office that has a stake in it. You know, for us, we're just citizens, and we just want to live, want to travel with our kids. We want to have a stable life. We don't want to go back to what happened in World War I or II. You know, what happened to China, Japan. You know, I mean, all this heartbreak and war. You cannot get back those time and the family we lose. So this makes me want to just say I'm glad you went, and I'm glad and I'm happy that our audience could hear how important it is for you to set that tone from a young age, where your children still have a pact with their siblings, where they cherish this. This is not about being traditional or woke, or human beings. Our family, we love our family. Family loves us. It's not a political issue. It's traditional nucleus. You know, this human beings, no matter what race, what culture, what country you're in, it's a basic human want and need. So
people, I like to believe, are the same all over, and
absolutely,
most people have the same basic desires and wants, et cetera, et cetera. It's the way we put together our leadership that makes life difficult.
It's gotten worse in the last few decades.
It's gotten worse. And come home, and of course, the big news yesterday and today is inflation here, and it's really a damn shame because it is going to hurt. It already is hurting.
It's hurting, and you know,
it's going to hurt a lot worse.
And our government, our federal government, our Federal Reserve are all responsible. And as voters, we really have to start kicking the can down the road. Now, we've spent many episodes talking about it. I think we need to talk about it again. But as usual, we'll run out of time. Get some rest. I hope you're not jet lagged. And I hope our audience could share the joy in seeing Jim pass the glow of being re-energized and spending time with family, because that's all you can ask for. All the hard work and all the shit we ate, excuse my language, all these years, just so that we could, you know, at our young age of 70, able to still see everybody we love and have experience new things together.
Yep. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share that, Jimmy. And
thank you for giving me the time. Charles,
next week will come soon enough.
Yes, sir.
And
I hope our audience would, if you guys want to email or write a comment for any details of Jim's trip, I'm sure he'll love to share. He's somebody that I 100% trust on giving the best advice on good places, whether in California or Philadelphia or in Italy.
Yeah.
Never gone wrong.
Jimmy, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Welcome home. Glad to see you. Happy birthday.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.